Welcome back to the Motivation Mindset Podcast, where we discuss every week all things business. This week, I have a very special guest to introduce, and I've been waiting to this whole time. I have
William Horan. I'm a business major at UTSA, and I'm excited to talk about motivation.
Yes, thank you for being here. We're so excited. So just a little starter question is, what actually motivates people at work besides money?
Apart from money, I think just being accepted and being valued at their workplace, I think is something that can really motivate somebody and encourage them to work and be more engaged. If they're not supported, if they're not valued, I don't think they're going to lose all their engagement, all their interest, and really kind of feel betrayed in a sense. Obviously, money would be the biggest factor when it comes to motivation, but motivation is so much deeper than just money. It's a feeling that can really drive an employee to really go over the top for their expectations and for their company. So whenever you're able to get an employee to be motivated, I think it's a great idea to do that.
Is there ever a time when money sometimes stops motivating people for a while?
I think for sure money can definitely stop, especially whenever somebody makes enough of it. Money is not the end all be all. Money is just kind of something to help people get by. Obviously, it helps people live their lives. But over time, people are going to start to realize that just working for a paycheck and not being motivated to actually work for that. And they're going to lose their sense of themselves and who they are. So that's just one way that motivation can just go so much deeper.
Great answers. I love all of them. What would you say the biggest difference between a motivated person and an unmotivated person is in a job?
How much they're engaged, how much they actually believe in themselves and the company's values. I think that goes a long way. Obviously, whenever you get hired, you're going to be pretty much in agreement with this company and their values and their long-term plan. But things can change and stuff can switch around. I think somebody who is in a situation where they get hired and they have a position that they really like and they have a company who they like their goals and their long-term plan, and then that changes, that can really lead to somebody being disengaged and really focused on their work.
So you would say that the job and how they run their company can really affect someone's motivation?
Of course, that is exactly it. I think the way that a company runs their business can be a life or death situation to an employee's motivation. They're not going to be motivated to really work on something if they're not going to agree with it. They need to be behind something and be working towards something that they believe has value and that they actually believe is worth it.
Yeah, so kind of going into that leadership role and how that can really affect someone's motivation. How does a manager or boss impact an employee's motivation?
I think a manager has a very large role in impacting these employees' motivation. Every move that they make, every signature they sign, every person they talk to is really affecting their employees and affecting their levels of how motivated they are to do their job. I think if also a manager or a boss can really invest in their employees and really put time in and seem like they care, I think that could do great things for that employee's motivation and really show to them that they're accepted and that they're valued. On the contrary, I think if an employee has a meeting with their boss and they talk to him in a mean way or a disgusting way, and they don't apologize about it, and they really just kind of leave it at that, that can really just lead that employee to be disengaged, therefore demotivated, to a regression of their work and ultimately a separation.
Yeah, I can see that. And I can see, potential harm to their work ethic with the lack of motivation, because they're going to feel like they don't need to work hard anymore.
Of course, yeah, exactly that. Yeah, work ethic is a major factor too when it comes to motivation. Motivation is the driving force of work ethic. People, obviously, you always want people and employees that'll work hard for you. And if they're not motivated, they're not going to be working hard for you. They're not going to really put time or effort into their work as they would if they were motivated.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And I think all of these are great. What's something simple that companies could do that could increase people's motivation?
I think if you cut it down to black and white, obviously, give them a bonus, give them more money. that is going to be the number one factor when it comes to that, giving them the ability to support their family and themselves with money is always one of the top motivating factors. Also, something as little as just like a little get-together party with all the employees and all the coworkers get to coexist and kind of bond outside of that confine of just working constantly and being always occupied with something. I think it's important to really bring out the humanity in people and really help them to see that they're all in this together and that they're not kind of stuck in one spot. I think that is another thing that could really bring out motivation in employees. You just give them more vacation time. There's so many ways
We
to
love
increase.
vacations.
They
We
do.
love vacations.
They do. Even just PTO. I mean, it's little things that go a long way for these employees.
Absolutely, absolutely. Would you say that people care more about the recognition and like the little fun things outside of work or money?
I would say it depends on the person. It depends on their situation outside of work, but more times than not, it's going to be the person really, depending on the money, more so than
Absolutely.
the little emotional boosters.
Absolutely. So shifting away from, I guess, a little bit of that money, and the incentives part, what kind of work environment makes people actually want to show up to work?
Right, yeah. So I think a work environment that is self-driven and self-guided by the employees, and one in which they have a say in what happens, and these managers aren't making decisions without any sort of input from these lower level employees, like they just kind of do things on their own. I think that is not an environment they want to be in. I think one that the manager values and really have a goal that they stick to, and they don't kind of stray from that.
So would you say that what I'm hearing of what you're saying, that a toxic work environment could absolutely kill motivation for hardworking people?
Exactly that. Yes, a toxic work environment is going to lead to the most demotivated workers that you could imagine. These toxic workplaces can just ruin even the hardest workers, and it's a shame, but that just shows you how important motivation is for the workplace.
Has this happened to you personally? Have you experienced, a toxic work environment, or the opposite, a good work environment that has given you motivation to keep working?
I actually have experienced both. I think the job I had before this one now, that I wasn't necessarily motivated. I was just kind of going just to go, and there was no communication from the managers or even my coworkers. I didn't even know half of their names. Nobody would talk, and it was just kind of a dead space and not something for me. But the job that I work at now, I have people that I get along with, and I have managers that talk to me, and they run things by me. They ask me questions and how I'm doing. And it just goes such a far way in terms of my motivation to actually want to show up to work and do what I'm employed to do.
That's great. That's awesome. And I'm glad to hear that you found a job that you truly feel wanted at, and that you enjoy, that you can show up and feel motivated at, and just ready to work.
Of course.
Ready and willing to work. All right, so we're gonna shift our focus just a little bit. Enough of these scenario questions. I've heard about motivation theories, and I was just wondering if you could maybe give us insight of what those are.
Of course, yeah. So motivation theories, we have 4 theories. We have the Maslow's hierarchy. This is a theory where humans are arranged in a hierarchy. You have somebody at the top, and they kind of rule over everybody. Then you have the ERG, kind of categorizes the needs, existence, relatedness, and growth. This one kind of prioritizes that just constant growth between the employees and everything like that. Then you have equity. This one is motivation through fairness comparisons, comparing employees, seeing who deserves what. That would be equity. And then expectancy. Effort leads to performance, to rewards. It seems kind of clear cut. Effort to rewards, but these are often the 4 recognized theories when it comes to motivation.
Hey, that's really awesome, and thank you for the insight. I'm hoping you can educate the people a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Let's move even further than that. What are the motivation strategies. I've heard of those too, but
Of course,
why
yeah.
not educate the
Yeah,
people?
when it comes to strategies and motivation, we're gonna have variety. That's gonna be job rotation, cross training, really switching them in and out of a position, so they're not kind of getting burnt out in one spot over time. Then you have identity, which is just task completion and whole tasks. Giving them a set task and kind of guiding them to complete that whole thing will really lead to more motivation in the end once they complete that task and reach their goals. You have significance, so impact awareness and meaningful contributions can just be a manager telling them that they appreciate them. Something as little as that would go a long way. Autonomy, decision-making power and word freedom, giving them the freedom to do what they want, can be a great way to motivate somebody. It's giving them that power to make their own decisions in the workplace. And then lastly, you have feedback. Feedback, is evaluations, reviews, continuous feedback. Just giving them a constant way to let them know how to be better and how to improve in the workplace can really show like, hey, this manager really cares about me because they're telling me what I'm doing wrong. They want me to be better.
Yeah, like that constructive criticism.
Exactly. Yes, that can go a long way for somebody being motivated in the workplace.
Would you say that you could survive with only one, or do you think all of these have to be joined together in order to motivate somebody?
Right. I think that it's very important that you have a little bit of each one of these. I think it would be not the best idea to just stick to one of these. All of them kind of play a large role in motivation itself. And it's just extremely important that they all kind of come together. Variety, identity, significance, autonomy, and feedback all come together to form this feeling of motivation in the employee's mind, and really just kind of drive them to do what they're meant to do.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say for yourself would be the most beneficial for your motivation out of those?
I really like variety. I like to constantly be moving around and not having to do the same thing over and over and over. I think just a new scene, even if it's just a different room, that's something that can help me go a long way. And then also, I really like autonomy and just having the power to do, what I want, and having that decision. Because obviously, in a workplace, you're gonna have a boss, and they're gonna tell you what to do, and that's going to be most of the time, but if I can have just a little bit of time when I feel like I have that actual freedom, that's going to lead to a lot more engagement on my end and therefore motivation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can feel kind of draining when you're just being told what to do over and over and over again and not having that freedom, almost like a creative freedom to be able to add your own personal touch to it.
Exactly.
And it could really, affect your motivation. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. We've talked about bosses, we've talked about work environment, we've talked about incentives and money and all these things. Now I kind of want to talk about coworkers a little bit. How would you say coworkers can affect someone's motivation at work?
Right. So coworkers, aside from managers, have a very large role in the motivation that an employee can have. If you have a coworker and they support you in everything that you do, and you kind of get along and you're friends and you kind of talk it up a little bit in your free time, I think that can really motivate somebody to actually wake up in the morning and go to work. Absolutely. When they have somebody to come to work and talk to.
I know. There's times when I don't want to get out of bed, and then I'm like, that one coworker.
Exactly.
That one coworker
always gets you out of bed. Yeah, and then on the contrary, you have coworkers who don't talk to you. In my experience, I had at my previous job. That's just something that can be draining and really disengaging, and not really a great thing to have in the workplace. I think that coworkers getting along is just a huge thing. Also, just like feeling that alliance of having people beside you who do the same thing as you, and you see them doing it every single day, and maybe one day you're not really motivated to do it, but you see them doing it. And just that little thing can really just motivate somebody to just get over the top and do their work.
Okay, absolutely. Hold on. Because we're like on that topic, you know.
Right. There's gonna be a huge file on my CapCut.
Use like iMovie or something.
Huh?
Use iMovie.
I don't use CapCut.
Whatever.
That's what I use. That's what I'm gonna use.
Okay, wait. Okay. So, do you think that the people that you work with could honestly matter more than the job itself?
I think that could definitely play a factor. Sometimes the work you do can be irrelevant to your motivation, right? Sometimes everything besides your work can really play into the idea of whether you're motivated or not. And coworkers obviously play a huge role in that, along with the bosses and everybody that makes up this company. So yeah, just to end it off, I think that the people that you work with and the managers themselves, of course, can actually end up being more important than the work that you do.
Giving you that motivation to
Exactly.
continue, even if a job isn't necessarily your favorite. You have these people to build you up, to give you that motivation to keep going.
Exactly.
What kind of coworkers make you want to work harder?
The coworkers that make me want to work harder are the kind that can tend to be extroverted and kind of be outgoing and kind of check up on you every once in a while. I think those coworkers are ones that can really motivate somebody. Just simple conversations here and there. That's something that can really help pass the time and really help take away the manual labor part of the job and really just bring out that human aspect in a person to really help them just get through their work.
We have these good people that really motivate us, but how would you say, maybe a lazy or an unmotivated person could affect you in the workplace?
Right. So I think somebody who is lazy or unmotivated can really end up setting the wrong example for an employee and really, put in their mind that they think that's okay because they do it, I can do it. But that's not something that you want to have in your mind whenever it comes to being motivated in a workplace. Just having that sense of laziness in the workplace just makes it so much easier for you to fall into that trap.
Absolutely. Have you ever lost motivation due to, someone who's less motivated than you in a workplace?
I have. I've noticed, maybe a coworker is working a little less hard than I am, and then I'm like, okay, well, why am I working this hard if they're not working this hard?
Yeah.
And then I kind of try to pull back my effort a little bit and kind of disengage myself in a sense. So it definitely does affect many people, including myself.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think it could be a little bit of like a domino effect,
Exactly.
When one person's down, then another person's down, and then another person's down, and then it could eventually, bring down the entire team. And that could be detrimental to a team's motivation.
Absolutely.
I kind of briefly mentioned earlier kind of about how, a company or business should really stick to their goals and it can really help someone's motivation. But kind of on the flip side of that, how could growth and change increase motivation in a workplace?
Growth is really important. Growth of the company that they work for is something that flips motivation on its head. The employee can, recognize that this company is growing and they're doing it in an ethical way, of course. Then they're going to be more motivated and feel like they had a sense and feel like they had a role in that.
Right.
And they kind of contributed to that. And maybe if that is the case and there is growth, maybe this company should give their employees some recognition, which could lead to even more motivation. So, I mean, you could just kind of, it's really just building on top of it.
Yeah.
Whenever there's growth, you can just stack on top.
Absolutely. And, sometimes being stagnant can really falter that. It can make it really hard to be motivated when, it's important to stick to those goals, but you can't just do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again,
Exactly.
So what happens when employees feel stuck in the same position where there isn't growth? How does that really affect them?
Yeah, I think it's detrimental to their work. I think that whenever they feel stuck and that they don't feel like they're going anywhere, I feel like they're just gonna kind of do their work in a sense that the work isn't going anywhere, and everything they do is just gonna kind of be neutral, average, and not really, um, reaching high and above like a company would want. They're just gonna kind of be, you know, straight the whole time. They're not gonna be going up. They might even go down. Not a good thing whenever a company is shrinking instead of growing.
So with what you're saying, like, can someone still be motivated if there's no improvement and there's no growth? Do you think?
I think a person can be motivated. It would definitely have to be brought up from other aspects in the workplace. Maybe coworkers getting along, doing stuff outside of work can really help with that. But I feel like if it's a employee who really takes pride in their work and then they recognize that there's no growth at all, I think that that's something that can really be detrimental, really just kind of disengage them.
I kind of want to go to the root, the root of motivation. Do you think that motivation is something that someone is born with or developed over time?
Motivation is something that is carefully developed over time. I think somebody who's just born with motivation, obviously you have people that are hard workers, that can only go so far. Eventually there's going to be an obstacle that they're going to run into, and their motivation will take a hit. And whenever it takes a hit, you're going to have to redevelop it back up to what it was if you're born with it. So I think motivation is definitely something that is always changing. It's never a set thing that you're just kind of stuck with.
Absolutely.
It's such a malleable aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's days when you don't feel motivated, but then the next day you could be off the roof. You're ready to, of course, take any task that's thrown at you. So absolutely. So what would you say the difference between being motivated is than just being disciplined?
Somebody who's disciplined know their spot. They kind of, take the back seat, and they're not going to try to push themselves too much. Somebody who is motivated is going to go above and beyond, and they're going to do what's more than expected of them. Being disciplined can be important in a workplace. Obviously, you can be motivated and disciplined at the same time. But I think motivation is a much stronger aspect to deal with.